Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the 27th Convergence India 2019. May I please call upon Mr. Sachin, Garg, Associate VP, Semiconductors and Electronics, Markets and Markets, to come on the stage. And I would also like to call upon our keynote, Mr. Shinto Joseph, Director, Southeast Asia Operations, LDRA Technology Private Limited. Can we all welcome them with a big round of applause? We are Mr. Khushal K. Panchal, VP PCB Power, Mr. Sai Kamalesh, CEO, KEMSYS Technologies Private Limited. Now may I please request Mr. Sachin Garg to introduce all our speakers briefly and take over the session. Thank you, sir.
Very good afternoon, everyone. Somewhat I think it's very difficult to chair a session after lunch. Okay, everybody feels sleepy and all those things. Still, our panel will make sure that you don't feel so sleepy, and we will make it so interesting as much as we can. Okay, so today's topic for this session is the trends in embedded system industry. Okay, and more than that, the second part of this topic is more relevant, that is its impact on electronics manufacturing. Okay, and for this beautiful discussion, we are having some of my panelist members, very educative and very knowledgeable. It's a small panel, but very balanced, I would say, because we are having someone from the entire value chain. We have someone from the PCB manufacturing side, then we have someone who is providing the entire embedded system solution. Then we have someone who is advising from the certification and the testing side. So let me introduce our panelist members. We have Mr. Joseph, who is the keynote speaker for today's discussion. Mr. Joseph is currently working as Director, Southeast Asia Operation at LDRA Technology Private Limited. That is a subsidiary for LDRA Limited UK. Mr. Joseph did his MBA in marketing from Crest Bangalore and BTech in computer science from the Kerala University. With over 20 years of experience in handling embedded software lifecycle solution, he has built many teams and companies in the embedded system field. Working with cross-border delivery teams, technology partners, and the regulators in the defense, aerospace, automotive, industrial, medical, rail, and the nuclear, and taking care of overall operations and the sales for this particular company. His main specialties lie in the designing, manufacturing of PCB, up to 24 layers, sourcing of electronics component, and the assembly. He has done his BE in electrical along with the MBA in the marketing. Kindly welcome Mr. Khushal Panchal. After that, I am having Mr. Sai, who is the CEO for KEMSYS Technology Private Limited. He's having overall experience of 24 years so far, and he's creating a huge awareness to embedded electronics market, from concept to commercialization on the basis of product design services. He's working on cracking cardio disease emergencies through patent pending predictive healthcare solution. Within his span of 24 years into sales and marketing, he has been to 12 years into manufacturing, 8 years into HR, 12 years into the company, profit and loss, and last 13 months has been as CEO. He is experienced in handling industry verticals such as telecom, aerospace, defense, computer, consumer electronics, home appliances, energy, renewable energy, healthcare, and the pharma sector. So you can say he has covered all the applications so far. So kindly welcome Mr. Sai Kamalesh for this particular session. Before Mr. Joseph can take the stand for our keynote speak, I would like to tell you that when we talk about the embedded system industry, okay, the first thing which comes into our mind, that is the electronic sector within India or globally. And we all know that it's more than 1 trillion industry globally. And even in India, we are expecting it should cross more than 400 billion within the electronics. So it's a huge opportunity for all the players, entire the ecosystem, especially is in embedded. At the one stand, we are saying it's a huge opportunity because we'll be getting so much of the demand through automotive, through wearable devices, through healthcare, and maybe so many applications are there. At the same time, we are so much of dependent from the import side that we have to import all the components from Taiwan, China, or South Korea. And our CAD deficit is going to increase. And it's expected that with the same growth, we may cross crude oil as far as our CAD deficit is concerned. Maybe we cannot control this import from the component side because we do not have any foundry in India itself, but maybe we can work from the board side. We can have our own embedded system across the application, either it's automotive, defense, or healthcare sector. We can take an example of automotive itself, and you can see so many electronics components are there in a vehicle right now, and it is expected for any vehicle by 2022, 50% of the cost for any vehicle will be just due to electronics component. You can assume how many embedded system will be required in automotive segment itself. Then we have medical devices, so many medical devices which are coming into the healthcare sector, and then that's one of the major market which we are having is the wearable devices from the consumer side. Then if I talk about the more upcoming technologies like Internet of Things or artificial intelligence, that is going to add some more and more demand for this sector. Plus, for sure, I cannot negate that there are so many challenges as well in this particular embedded system industry, and those challenges are from the complex design, because everybody is looking for a particular area or the power. And there are so many customized solutions for each and every application. So it's not like you can say maybe in 95 or maybe 96 where we were having very easy solutions. Now for each application we have to deal with a complex embedded system. Adding to that, we have to take care of the security part as well. It is a cyber security or maybe an embedded security within any hardware devices. Okay, so these are the challenges we are facing for this particular industry. Okay, I can share my views after this, during this session as well, but before that, I would like to invite Mr. Joseph so that he can set the tone for today's panel discussion. He can highlight all the major trends and what are the key challenges we are facing as far as Indian market is concerned. So, welcome, Mr. Joseph.
Good afternoon. Before I start, I just wanted to hear from you guys. How many of you are from electronics? How many of you are from software? Okay. How many of you are involved with safety? No. Anybody involved with security? Okay, that gives me an idea about the audience. So I will try my level best to do justification to each one of you. First of all, thank you guys for inviting me. I think he has set the stage rightly. What I will do is I will share some of my experiences from the day one in my career. This is my third decade in the same industry. When I started, where it was and what is happening right now, where it is going to head probably. Plus, particularly in the industry, from a manufacturing point of view, because I work with the customers across the globe, people who make aircrafts to defense systems, to automotives, to medical devices, to rail, whatever people make today. The challenges what they face, especially from the selling point of view, from a regulation point of view, where they are losing money, where they are making money, because we watch all these things because that's where we can make some money. So that's it. And I also focus on a subject called how do we build dependable products for the market, because that's the need of the hour. I will also tell why we need to have dependable products for our day-to-day activities. So this is a brief agenda I have. I'll talk a little bit about the history of embedded systems, where it started, and then conclude it with some of my observations. Probably I'll take some questions, when I'm back with the crowd there. So I have got about 20 minutes to cover my viewpoints. This is a history. It all started with the concept called pervasive computing. I don't know how many of you have done study on this area. Pervasive computing is computing for anyone, anytime, anywhere. Unlike the traditional definition of computing, which is more around desktops, this gave way for putting computing into everything. So including your classrooms, to washing machines, to entertainment, to mobile, to whatever you do, you could do computing. The reason is people started asking for improved efficiency. I want things to be efficient. So how do I make systems efficient? By putting intelligence into the system. So if I need to put intelligence, I need to have systems which are running in the back end, which will analyze and make my systems more intelligent. And the next thing which had started, for example, I started my career in the 90s where you won't believe in engineering, the machine which I got was a 386 to C. Most of my work was done on an XT, which is a 8086 with hard disks. That was called XT those days. So it will be a surprise for the youngsters, but that is where we started. Now, if you look at 90s, 99% of the processors shipped in this world used to go to PC world. 99% of the processors used to go to PC world. Now, can anybody tell me today, what would be the percentage of processors going into PC world today? Any wild guess? Anybody? Less than 1%. That gives you, clear picture on where things have gone, changed. So this is exactly the shift that has happened in the semiconductor industry. Today, if you ask Intel, it's one of my big customers, they're throwing money like anything on these areas where it's no more chips what they sell. They sell something called ECU, electronic control units, which can fit into your cars, fit into your energy meters, whatever you do. So X was the value if they were selling earlier days. Today, they sell it for 10X. It is not just the processor. A lot of things are going around that. And another thing which fueled this growth was connectivity. Everything was getting connected. And particularly the wireless connectivity, that was the game changer in 90s, which saw this shift. I hope you remember the history of iridiums to the cellular connectivity to the Wi-Fi's. So connectivity was a major driving force, which made this one of the major evolution in this field, where, as I told you, from 99 through PC to 99 to non-PC, this is a clear shift of the industry. And again, it also gave way to concepts like standards, because people started making different products, and that's the time people started talking about standards. I need to standardize things. It started coming slowly into this industry. Why you need standards? Can anybody give me? This example gives you an answer for my question. What is common in these bulbs? It is the interface. Imagine a day where you don't have a common interface. You'll be searching for bulbs replacement across the city. Which bulb will fit into my holder? So that is the beauty of standards. Now, what differentiates these products? It is all about, how do I sell against my competitor? The application design. It is the design that makes the difference. I could have better luminous intensity. I could have better, way of looking at it. So it is the design makes the difference. Even though when you follow standard, you could have still differentiation through design innovations. Now, let me touch the next topic. As I told you, I will give a little more importance to the word dependability, because the world is going more towards that. Everything is getting connected, and I want dependable system for my day-to-day life. If I cannot depend on my devices, why I need those devices? So what do you mean by dependability? This gives you one classic example. This is the most costliest accident world has ever seen. 5 Ferraris hitting on the road and a Japanese highway. Can you tell me how many people got hurt in this accident? Any wild guess? Nobody. No one got hurt. So that means if you design a product for reliability, safety, even if there is an accident, people don't lie. So that's what I mean by dependability. So it is not just so-called a virtual definition of dependability. It goes much beyond that. So that means as a designer, I need to make sure that all my parameters are taken care of when I design a product. It should be safe. It should be made available when I need it. It should be maintainable. It should be, whenever I need it, I should be able to rely on it. So I'm sure as an engineer, you do study these subjects, but I'm not sure how many of you put those things in your product when you're designing it. And if you really want to look at the manufacturing industry today, one of the biggest area people are working on is basically life cycle costing. Life cycle costing is nothing but from the time you purchase a product to maintain it, to upgrade it, and finally dispose it. So total cost of a product over a period, depending upon if it's an aircraft, it is typically 40-year lifespan. If it is a mobile, today it is coming to a couple of months. So Depending upon the industry we are in, the life cycle costing would vary. So you look at these parameters, making sure that you optimize your designs, making sure that your profitability component is maintained, your reputation is maintained in the market. Okay, let me go take you some more trends which I'm seeing around, which I'm sure all of you are experiencing. Many of you have some good experiences or bad experiences in this trend. Interestingly, most of these devices are touching base of your day-to-day life, sometimes with regard to safety, sometimes with regard to security. You take your medical device to cars, to rail, to anything and everything what you do. Two observations you have. The size of the hardware started seeing the reduction for age-old time. It almost reached the optimal level, but then you are seeing different types of technologies coming, multi-core, so many things happen in this field, people trying to optimize the speed and performance on heat parameters, all those things you have seen. Something silently happened over a period. What is that? The size of software in your devices started booming. I was so happy because all my life I was with software. And the more the software in your system, the more the flexibility you get, but it also brings you more problems for you. And that's where I make some money. So it is two sides of the same coin. You really want flexibility, you need to have software. And more you are seeing software component is increasing, especially with the connected devices. You're talking about intelligent devices, artificial intelligence. You will see more and more software penetration happening in the market. But then the challenge is these systems are becoming more and more vulnerable, which was not the scenario in a non-connected world. In a connected world, everything is vulnerable. Now, believe me, guys, I work with the defense guys who says, I am on an isolated network, I don't worry about security. We have proved them many times, sir, your argument is wrong. This is the way people could spook your network. Okay. Now, people have started thinking differently. Okay, security, the word definition of security itself need to be redefined. You are no more secure just because of you are not connected to internet. That's a modern definition. Most of the sophisticated attacks nowadays is coming not at the application level, it goes layers below that. You won't even know. Your antivirus will not find it, your current security networks, whatever you're putting, they don't even detect it. Most of the attacks are now coming below that. So we do advise some agencies with governments on, of course, friendly governments, on what to do, what not to do in these areas. Now, this is a fundamental principle of every human being. In the early stage of our life, any society, any individual, any economies, roti kapda makan is the first thing. Food, shelter, clothing. Now, once the economics start improving, you become slightly wealthy. As a country, as an individual, you start talking about safety, security, right? Your stomach become thoda full, then you start singing. That's the time you start talking about safety, security. Till that first three things are not met, you don't think about safety, security. As a country today, if you look at India, we are at the right time. People are getting worried about safety, security. And if you are worrying all about your food issue on a day-to-day basis, you don't care about safety. Guy who's sleeping on the road, he knows first priority is basically fill his stomach. Now, we are not in that category, luckily. So, for us, majority of the people in this country, we have passed through that roti kapda makan phase. We are in this second phase. Most of the societies across the globe, you call it the developed society or developing society, you are in this phase. So, that is where the need of dependable products comes into picture. People like you would look at dependable products. And this is the other angle. Safety means what? Security. There is an interconnect. I'll bring you to that point. Imagine you are using a medical device, somebody is hacking into that. The device is no more safe. Imagine you are running a nuclear reactor, somebody is hacking into that, it's a bomb. So the root cause is the security vulnerability. And you've seen the history where the Iranian sabotage by the friendly nations. Otherwise, Iran would have, by this time, a nuclear bomb. Middle East would have been something else by this time. So we were involved in one of the assignments with the nuclear industries in India, replacing some of the Western PLCs with Indian-made soft PLCs with security testing. So that's where actually way back about 7 years back, we got involved with such a work. Those days actually nobody used to discuss this issue. Now it's a subject for all of us. So these two are interconnected. The moment your systems are hacked, safety parameters goes for a 6. Now, olden cars, security was not an issue. There was no connectivity, there was no electronics, there was no software. But the question is, are they safe? They were not that safe. Modern cars are more safer, but they are not secure, many a times. And the proof is that the argument today people are saying is, organizations or systems today, there are only two categories. Either they don't know they're already hacked, or they accept they already hacked. There are only two categories of firms. Now you decide you're in which category. So we face this on a regular basis. We do advise several organizations on security. Throughout week, we can see we're getting alerts internally. Something is coming. Be careful. This is what is happening. So because we advise other organizations, naturally these buggers target us. So autonomous driving, it's there already. A car, when it reaches a level 5 autonomous system, we call it a driverless, steeringless system, where the monitoring of the autonomy is also done by a computer. That's what we call by a level 5 autonomous system. Now, when you want to do that, this is what is happening. You're mixing machine learning, which actually makes the car to learn on a day-to-day basis. You have the AI algorithms running in the back end. This is a replica of what is going to come in every domain. You're seeing the same thing happening in medical devices. You're seeing the same thing happening in the industrial IoT framework, where you have the Industry 4.0. It's nothing but the same thing getting replicated in multiple domains. It throws up a lot of opportunities as well as challenges. That brings in the need for regulation. Without regulation, probably you're going to have a challenge on the way. Now, if you really want to look at building your manufacturing base without regulatory framework, you are not going to be successful. Just understand that part, that you do have international regulators, international standard bodies, regulatory bodies, industry people who are doing research on this, and then you have the consumers. It is ideally a balancing act between various stakeholders, adapting these regulations to respective countries. In fact, yesterday I was there in IIT, where BIS was doing a session for academicians. They gave me a session on, what is that academia should do in participating in standards development. We have a lot of work pending, at least in Indian context. Many of these standards need to be adopted. Organizations like BIS is pulling up their socks, making sure that, these things are happening in our country. These are some of the standards which would probably will help you to understand. Each of the domain is being driven by international safety standards. Aero has got its own, medical has got its own. What these standards in general talk about is, you have a defined way of designing, developing, testing, and certifying system. That's it, nothing else. It's a document which, as a Bible, each one of us are supposed to follow. And depending upon the regulatory challenges, people put penalties on you. For example, in our country, the penalties are relatively very less. We call it, there was a saying that, if you go to a hospital for X-ray, you're lucky you don't come out with the cancer, because there's nobody monitoring in our country these devices, your X-ray units, MRI machines. So I hope we are working with an agency right now discussing on the same subject. Probably the first medical regulatory lab could come up in this year in this country. So we need such things to make sure that such catastrophes don't happen to our public. These are some of the security standards which are widely used. Some of them are from industry bodies, societies like SAE from automotive, ISA, International Society for Automation, for Industrial Automation. You have a FAA standard for aerospace, and there are university standards, other committees like MISRA. So understanding these things will help you in developing secure products for your requirements. The challenges are like this. There's a dearth of skills in this country. We need to build those skills. We need to get the right technology framework into that. We need some level of automation to get all these things moving on time. Certification is a real challenge, because many a times certifications are very costly. In fact, currently we are discussing with an agency to making sure that we get affordable certification framework out of India, so that we can bring down the cost of certifying products out of India. Because if you really want to sell India as a manufacturing base for the whole world, make in India, that brand has to be made saleable outside India. The perception right now is any product going out of India is not safe. Many Indians, if you have seen that, when there's a comparison between an Indian brand and a foreign brand, they go for a foreign brand. But many a times they don't even understand this foreign brand when they sold in India is a downgraded brand for safety standards. They don't understand that. Sometimes the corresponding Indian brand would have been better. I know the inside story, that's why I'm telling this. I'm not supposed to name any particular vendor, but that's what they do. So I think that is something people should understand, that, go for the right credentials, whether that particular product is being qualified for international, like FDA. You talk about American medical device standard, FDA. They have US FDA for US as well as for the rest of the world. That means American citizens should be safe. Anywhere else you sell it, doesn't matter whether it's safe or secure. So I'm not against Americans, but I'm giving you one definition. There are similar versions available in the world. Now we need to make sure that, as a country, we need to have the right standards, right ecosystem available in our country. We could use the right methodologies, practices. That's what my company does. We advise people, we provide the right tools, train them, equip them, till they reach a certification agency where they can take the stamp. My conclusion is, we need a dependable system. That is the need of the hour. Even if we really wanted to make in India as a manufacturing base, we need to make sure that Indian products are on par with safety standards anywhere else in the world. They don't underestimate us when it comes to quality safety parameters. We can, not that we cannot do it. Believe me, guys, you take any multinational company, all of them are my customers. The real brains behind in testing and certification sits in India. So if they can do that using Indian brains, why can't we make our Indian products on par with? It is possible, not that we cannot do it. Only thing is, India needs to be challenged. We need to be challenged. That's the difference between Westerners and Indians. We need challenge. Unless we are challenged and pushed to the extreme, we don't do certain things. Following standards is the way of life we should do. We need to build the right skills, right tools, and I think the biggest challenge is collectively all of us need to put together, build a proper ecosystem in this country for building dependable futuristic products out of India. Thank you. I would take questions towards the end after the remaining things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph, for sharing your thoughts. Yeah, and just let us know how safety and security is very important for embedded system industry. And thanks for setting the tone for this discussion. And I still remember that we just get connected to be safe. And once we are connected, we are very concerned about our security threats and all those things. So it's mutually dependent. So now I would invite Mr. Sai to share his thoughts about embedded system. And I think he's taking care of entire solution. Maybe it's a designing or maybe assembly and all those things. So it will be really interesting to know his thoughts about this particular topic.
Sure. Thank you, Sachin, and thank you, Joseph, for a fantastic speech, which took us back to basics, and also taught us in terms of what we need to do to strengthen our basics towards the future in the embedded world. Embedded safety and security. I think it's very vast subject, as Joseph has said. Maybe, if I correctly remember, 3 or 4 takeaways are there from his speech. One is the standardization, of course. Second is accident proof. The example that he had shown us in his presentation, one of the slides talking about the accident that happened in Japan, but none of the guys got injured. No casualty, actually. And the third thing is hardware becoming small and software becoming more. That's the real crux. To the all younger and youngest minds in this room, this is what is required to be understood very carefully. The whole world is moving towards more software-driven hardware. So there is no longer a hardware device called IC. I call it as a software device now. So much of software is getting into the device, it is actually overtaking all the hardware aspects of a circuit that any embedded systems designer designs for themselves or for a customer. So if you look at the safety and security aspects of the embedded system, what I would like to mention is 3 dominant things that every embedded engineer need to understand and deploy those most important aspects in his or her designing of a product. I will divide that into 3 subjects. One is the architecture of a main product. The overall product architecture, if you look at, the amount of diversification that we can do on the architecture itself in terms of building redundancy so that many of the circuits don't get attacked, both from the weaknesses in the hardware as well as the software, is something what we need to think through in the beginning itself when the engineers design the products. So building a redundancy on the other side, that is on the safety side. On the security side, what I would say, making sure that the silicon is selected with all the inbuilt security features available. There are many silicon companies who are not, with any disregard to them, not opening up so many libraries earlier, but seeing the world and the way embedded systems are dominating the world in each and every application, be it related to people or processes or things. They understood very cleverly that if they don't open the libraries available to the engineers domain, it's very difficult for them to survive. So based on this fact, there are ample things available now for all the engineers. So all the built-in features, the security features, if someone is able to selectively, wisely select a chip, that almost 50% of the job of making a robust embedded system is done almost, in my opinion. Then the next 25% is the subject B, which I would like to touch upon, is the design aspect of the product. After architecture, it's the design. So when we talk about the design, there are globally standardized tools available, which fortunately, unfortunately, many Indian companies do not use. They try to find some kind of a shortcuts to complete the design due to the pressure from customer or pressure on them to start realizing some kind of a revenue, probably. So, but end of the day, the customer who uses the product pays a huge price for that. So keeping that in mind, from the design stage itself, globally standardized tools need to be deployed by all the hardware and firmware engineers, because we are now talking about the IC as no longer a hardware device, but it is a software device. Then understand the hardware circuit that and the features that we try to build around the chip have to be understood thoroughly, and it has to be, the resultant features have to be very robust. So the tools that we need to deploy need to be understood by us, and there is a partnership required with the silicon company as well as other, some of the other ICs, apart from the main embedded silicon, the other non-embedded silicon also, both. We need to understand, and we need to partner with them to understand those tools and deploy them in our day-to-day design life, so that a huge amount of regression tests are done not only on the hardware but also on the software. Thinking of the worst, engineers can prepare themselves for the best at the design stage. On the other side, when it comes to security aspect of the design, we should be in a position to know how to enable those features provided by the embedded silicon guys. And then we should also be able to write codes in such a way that they are also encrypted, if required using cryptology, why not? But then it has its own disadvantages if we again don't use the libraries effectively. So we need to make sure that a good amount of partnership with silicon as well as mind share between the hardware and firmware designers in a company are required, if at all we really want to bring out a robust product from within India. I think this is where probably many companies in India are lacking a lot, and that is definitely not intentional, but then probably due to lack of knowledge. But then I think this is where a partnership is required with silicon as well as within the company, the hardware and firmware teams. That's what I feel. And coming to the last part, the third point, at the circuit level, we need to ensure that when it comes to safety and security, optimal and safe voltages and currents, number one. Number two, probably using enough buffers on the circuit. And number three, enough filters. So this is when the whole product becomes more matured and robust for the chip to, the embedded chip to support the rest of the hardware, and the rest of the hardware also to support the embedded silicon. This way, the end of the day, the robustness of the product actually will be seen by the developer as well as the customer to actually unleash a huge operating cost reduction for the customer if he uses that product. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Saiz, for sharing your thoughts. And I really like the terminology software devices. And it's really true because recently I was doing a study on the demand side for AI and IoT, okay? And we came to know that hardware players are having a opportunity around 20% of the market, and the rest 80% of the market has to come from the software and the services side. So you are very true that mainly market has to come from the software players and the service players. Yeah, right. So before we get into a discussion or maybe a question answer session, I would like to invite my co-panelist, Mr. Panchal, for sharing his thought process on this topic.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Shinto and Sai. They have given very good insight about the safety and security, and also about the developments in the embedded. As I belong to the manufacturing background, I will furthermore talk about the challenges, what is the reality right now, how the things are like coming up. Before 5-6 years, there was a scenario that we used to get the similar designs getting repeated for a number of years, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, something like that. But now embedded has driven a change in the industry where the new designers are coming up. So embedded technology is now everywhere. And North America was one of the largest growing market. But the exciting thing for us is that now Asia Pacific is the second largest market, only because the adaptability of the technology has been increased rapidly. And that is also increasing the rapid growth in the developments. Now, if we talk about the synergy between the manufacturing and the designers or the developers, many of them are sitting here also. So whenever you are designing the things or you are preparing a device, so at that time, what the challenges in your designs are coming to the manufacturing is that when we get the data for the manufacturing, there is no relevance of the manufacturability some of the times. So that is required to be improved from designer side. At the same time, manufacturing can also do a lot to encourage developments. Like if there is a MOQ or if there is a prototype developments, we have to fold hands together to convert your idea into reality. And that is what we are working upon. So as a country, we have very good opportunities in terms of embedded. And for the new developments, yes, we can do a lot more. And that is what is required, and it's a need of the day. Now, when we talk about the use of embedded technology as a manufacturing unit, what is the use, what we do in real life? So, for example, if I have more than 100 machines in my plant, what I'm trying to see is that I'm trying to use a simple software. With help of that, I used to do my planning for day-to-day activities. It's a printless plant, but then the sequence is dependent on people. Now, with the help of IoT and embedded, I want my machine to directly integrated with system so that we can more effectively use for our maintenance schedules and many other utility and the effectiveness. So, I believe we can take the discussion further with other challenges and the things what we are coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Panchal. So just to continue the discussion, because we have talked about the opportunities, and we all know that automotive or maybe healthcare sector and the wearables, these are the top opportunity we are having right now. But just considering the theme of this event that related to IoT and the embedded tech, so I would like to ask my co-panelist in concern of the smart cities. We are working on the 100 smart cities right now, and they are working for smart transportation, surveillance, security, and there are lots of things, utilities, okay, smart grid. So what do you think such type of applications are impacting embedded system opportunities? So do you have any say on that?
Sure, actually, am I audible? Okay. For any of these technologies, the consumption is done at the end user level. When you're building a city is nothing but it is an ecosystem by itself, where all these stakeholders bring in their networks, devices. So naturally, any city is becoming smart means smartness is brought in by bringing connectivity, intelligence, whole sort of parameters, which consumes whole lot of embedded devices into the backend. So from an upper layer, we might see things very fancy, but then the backend is, I think, a lot of such consumption is going to happen. No doubt on it. But then my worry is, because I do had a chance to give a presentation to the Smart City Standardization Committee in BAS. My colleague is a member in the committee, wherein I asked this question, when you make all these systems connected and make it smart, and suppose somebody from outside decide to pull it down, what is the way out? So, to be frank, it is a real challenge as a country. When you go for the smart city approach, I think we need to have the right security systems by design. The cities should be made secure, the architecture should be secure. It should not be allowed to be implemented by anybody, by the current city planning. Have you ever seen Indian cities, how they go? They go with, from left side, it goes to right, and then they decide should go to north. So that type of approach we should not be following in our smart city. Definitely it should be by design, it should be secure, and that's my only observation.
Maybe any one of you can take any example where you have contributed for any of such initiative, so that it's helpful for audience to understand how embedded system industry is helping a smart city or IoT initiative in India itself. Any example where you have worked for any Indian client?
Yes. So just taking a take from what Joseph has said, even smart city project owners, in this case being government of India, plus any private stakeholders, must come together to understand the fact that just by a fear psychology that a lot of guys probably can export the devices from outside of India to India, even Indians have to really work at a much cheaper options or at much cheaper cost. Then what happens, it actually creates a lot of inhibitions in the designer's mind, that it's very difficult to then meet those targets. The reason is we have to import components, we have to import the bare boards made in other parts of the world, except for some prototyping or smaller volume where we have good companies like PCB Power. How to then, how to mitigate this first? I mean, when we talk about smart city, it has so many things, starting from water, sewage, energy, whatnot, I mean, so many things, a huge gamut of things. But then how do we actually prepare ourselves? How will government help the private industry to prepare themselves? So one point is they should actually come up with not just the smart city objectives in terms of making 100, 200, 10,000 cities. Instead, they should actually draw some guidelines in terms of what quality norms and standardization every company need to look for. For example, why can't they then put some condition? I don't say condition unanimously, but at least government authorities can say that a certification stamp is required from LDRA. Why not? Fantastic. Or any similar agency. I'm not trying to sell them, by the way. So I think this is where government of India, if they can come up with these kind of draft with rules and regulations stated, not for only the implementation or execution of the project, but also for the product, starting from the hardware to software. Again, I'm touching upon the hardware and software. Because we have talent in abundance in India, but then that is not utilized properly due to all these various reasons. I think then this will become a quite successful project, and within a short span of time, we can see a lot of things happening in terms of smart city. As far as an example, without mentioning the company's name, one of the assignments, we have developed a LoRa-based street light controller, which actually started contributing a lot to a smart city project. And this is right now getting implemented in Maharashtra and Gujarat, followed by other states, by one of the top-notch companies in India. If that is successful, it will lead to a big business. We are able to actually see the way we teamed up and developed this product a few years ago on the hardware, firmware, and entire, mechanicals. It's an end-to-end product we could do. And incidentally, we could source some PCBs from some of the local PCB companies also. It's a good journey. Going forward, when it comes to volume again, we have to depend on a lot of guys in China, Taiwan. But the quality has been good. There has been no cyber attack as of now. We don't know tomorrow, but it's been successfully running for more than at least a few years. I think that's a good example I can give you.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Sai. Whenever I ask someone about a use case or case study about smart city, everybody is taking an example of Gujarat and Maharashtra, specifically to Rajkot and Aurangabad. I don't know if all the work is happening in these three cities, Aurangabad, Rajkot and Bhubaneswar. I'm not sure about it. Okay, so we have someone from PCB Power as well, so I would like to know from him that what type of demand we are getting from the Indian clients and what are the challenges for that, if you can.
Actually, as I added initially, the demand in development has been increased rapidly. I can say I have a booth here, so last 2 days I met at least 10 to 15 new startup companies. They came, the young chap, they came with the developments that this is the development I did and I want help. So demand for new designs is rapidly increased. At the same time, yes, they are looking for bulk, but as an industry we have many limitations right now, and we are our customers are also dependent on China for bulk kind of the requirements, because they have some natural resources and advantage of the raw material. So for the bulk, again, there is a dependency on China and Taiwan. But for the development, yes, we are now getting fully equipped. For the layer count wise also, now sequential stack ups and the new technologies like impedance control. Now every second board is with impedance controlled and all the high technology kind of the requirements. So for that, as a manufacturing industry, we are already geared up and we are serving to them. At the same time, to take care of the prototype and to encourage developments and no MOQs or working with them with the, for the engineering things, because the person who is designing the circuit first time, they are making many of the mistakes which are not going well with manufacturability. So we are holding hand with them, and the demands for the PCB and the assembly and all these things, now it is getting increased in India. Again, I want to add from the government point of view. I visited twice with government delegates to Taiwan also. Government is now started supporting manufacturing. They are giving subsidies also. If we are planning some new machines or the investment, government is supporting well, by the way. Just want to share. And just want to encourage the new startups in the electronics. That is why I am putting a note. So, and secondly, the new generation is also now not thinking to go out of India. Initially, there was a scenario before a few years that as soon as they complete the graduation, they plan which country they want to go. But now they want to grow in India. So that is another advantage when it comes to the development. So there are initiatives from government also, and there are initiatives to be required from manufacturing also.
Thank you, Khushal. I think we are left with 2 or 3 minutes before going for a break. So I can invite 2 or 3 questions from our audience. So any question for our panel? So there's no question? Yeah, please. Is there any mic? Yeah, I think you're audible enough. Just a second.
So, hi, I'm Kishan from Phoenix Robotics. We are designing embedded systems for some of the applications. And right now, we face challenges regarding procurement of the components. Like we are already collaborating with PCB powers, and the main problem that we are facing is the component procurement part. Even if we are preparing a list of BOM or all those things, within 2-3 months, the stocks are not available or the price are changing drastically. So what kind of strategy we should go for or we should apply to cope up with
he's
this
having a
issue?
very good solution for your problem, because we just discussed it. So
When you like, see when it comes to the cost of the component, when you are designing your stuff, at that time you have to like look into the how old the part is and how early it can get absolute. That is the again dependency on the manufacturing of the components. So far I can say in India there are very less component manufacturers, or there are almost about to nil. So most of the components are getting imported only. But again, to give the solution for at least to source fast and to give a faster solution, we created, like as a company, we created a footprint library, and we are coming up with the solution where as soon as you are uploading the Gerber file and your component BOM, you are getting the entire costing of the components on the desk. So you can define cost of your project as well as you can plan your things further.
So I think we can invite one more question, in case there's any question. Yeah, that's it.
Good evening, sir. I'm Krishna from Chennai. I'm representing TVS Training and Services. It's a TVS training company. We are training fresh graduates on embedded systems who are being as an unemployed, roaming around looking out for jobs. So we are training for them for a 4 months period. So what is the opportunity available for the fresh graduates in the embedded systems market? How is the industry now?
Good question. This is very much required in terms of creating an employment for the talent. So there are more than at least 1,600 startups in India as of now, as of December end, as per some statistics, published by the government of India, out of which more than 50% are into embedded. Okay, so there is a huge opportunity. So many of them could raise substantial funding, either from angel investors or venture capitalists. I think some of these youngsters can actually find jobs there, because many of them actually take them as trainees and then nurture them with a lot of knowledge given to them, so that they actually become, on the rolls as soon as possible. So they also get to know which specific embedded area they are going to be working on before joining itself anyway. And then they can actually bring them as a specialized, people into that domain, so that they will be able to contribute to wherever they work in future also. So that way there is employment possible. Second is a huge amount of manufacturing due to the volume that is actually happening in India, number one. Number two, due to also positive impact created by Make in India program. A lot of manufacturers are also looking at manufacturing engineering to be one of the most important functions available within their own premise. So that is where if some of these unemployed people are mature enough to understand what an embedded system is, so there will be job opportunities available for them in these manufacturing companies also. They could be either a product manufacturing company or EMS companies. So these two are the ones what are coming to my mind right now.
I'll just add to this. I think you're from Chennai, right? Okay. Right now, if you ask me, in Chennai, the kind of work which is coming is more of manufacturing. The embedded development part, currently, if you ask me in India, the biggest boom is happening in the western front, particularly Pune for automotive electronics. Industrial, you are seeing Pune plus Mumbai, because I meet customers, that's what I can see the pulse. We see a huge gap of demand supply for skills in this western belt. Now Chennai, it's a different type of skills what they're looking at, not the conventional embedded skills, more of manufacturing related stuff. Bangalore, you will see more of high-end skills because you have the Taiwan players operating there, multinationals, who would look at, better communications, mostly campus recruitment, those kind of stuff. This is a general pattern. In fact, we do have an academic alliance program where my objective is basically produce skills for my customers. We are now doing as research. Paper will be out on 21st of February. I'm running a global webinar on this subject. Skill gaps, what industry and academia should do, because we are not doing it for making money, but then I found for my company's growth in India, the skill has to be produced. So we're putting some money, resources, basically on skill building. I think we can talk. I think we could complement. I would be able to help you where to put your kids. Thank you.
Just to add, because what I have heard from the development side, there is a skills shortage, which I have heard. Because once AI is there into embedded system, they are looking for some high skill guys, right? Who can work on because lots of software will be there in the embedded system once AI is there. And that type of skill is not there in India right now. This is what I have heard till now. Okay, so thank you very much. I think this is the time to end our session. I think it was a very beautiful discussion we had in last 1 hour. And before ending this discussion, I would like to thank my all co-panelists. Thanks a lot for your contribution. And thanks a lot for my audience as well. Thank you very much.
Point, with your permission.
Yeah, sure,
so
sure,
two
sure.
points rather. So, as there is a famous saying, if one cannot monitor, one can't measure, right? What I would actually say is, what cannot be controlled doesn't have to be monitored. The world is moving towards it with a lot of embedded, core embedded and embedded cellular. This is number one. So we all have to actually gear up towards it. If we don't want, we can't stop it. It is going to happen. It's bound to happen. And about from the government point of view, if this can be actually told to some of the government officials through your contacts, we are not able to come up with any foundry in India for various socio-economic and political reasons, fine. But can government look into an alternative of tying up or booking a foundry elsewhere in the world, which actually can be a big advantage for India? So because the kind of development that India is actually seeing with a huge amount of talent being available on both hardware and software side, this is a time for Indian government to act, I believe, so that they can probably book, like the way a lot of customers book semiconductors capacity from the manufacturing side. Is there a possibility of government of India taking a huge initiative, moving forward, and then quickly, and then booking a capacity of a big foundry available elsewhere in the world at whatever cost? Maybe subsidies is possible through government of India elsewhere, I mean, through them, for them again back. So that way they can help the industry to grow further. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing thoughts. Just to comment on it, because I worked with government on the foundry part, and for sure we cannot expect any foundry in India in next 5 years. Well, in 2014, there were 2 foundries which were planned, and it will not work at all. And after that, what we are doing from the government side, we are working on a fabulous startup ecosystem in Bangalore. But yeah, very well noted that maybe we can plan a partnership, not in India, maybe overseas. That is something that can be done. Okay, so thank you very much, guys. Thanks a lot for your time. So I will end up the session with this note. Thank you.
With this, we come to an end of yet another knowledgeable session. We sincerely value your inputs and appreciate the time and efforts involved in your part to contribute to the success of this session. Thanks to all our delegates for the patience hearing. May I now request Mr. Sachin Garg to present the mementos as a token of appreciation to all our distinguished panelists. Mr. Shinto Joseph. Mr. Khushal K. Panchal. Mr. Sai Kamalesh. Now may I please request my colleague, Mrs. Sonia, to please come on stage and felicitate the moderator.